Okay, welcome to Nested Loops. We're doing the best interfaces, no interface, and I'll just go to share screen. I'm Forrest Chang. I'll be presenting today, and let me go and share my screen. All right, here's said book with the wonderfully low noise interface. So here's my presentation. Best interfaces, no interfaces. Session 1, Forrest Chang. That's me. All right, so here's my intro. I wanted to talk about why I picked this book, since we are mostly a group of Ruby developers. As software developers, we write software. Usually that software is for people. And sometimes we think we know how to write good interfaces, but we usually don't. So it's time to learn how. As Ruby developers, we know this. Ruby makes the programmer happy instead of the computer. So therefore, as developers, we should try to make the user happy. And not just the tech-savvy one. So I think we can make, I think a lot of developers, we can make the interfaces that are good for other developers and perhaps less good for non-developers. So that's why I'm interested in UX, UI techniques. Also, the book is both short and entertaining, so please do read it. I think all those guys, if you're here, if you've read it, right, it's entertaining. It's easy to read compared to the last one. So, all right. So I always go over the foreword because usually they pick the foreword for some reason. Ellis starts off here with a history on the telephone. So back in the day when the telephone was first invented, that ring was useful, you know, in a time where there was not a lot of distraction. Ring, 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 you know, oh, I'm getting a call. So it even became a status symbol, like, hey, I'm getting a call. And a lot of times people would call people just to call, you know, which I think in today's society is totally not appreciated anymore. So these days, Ring is annoyance because it competes with the many real-time alerts. We got Facebook Messenger, Snapchat Messenger, email this. People have to have watches now to tell them that they're getting messages because pulling their phone out is too much of a pain in the butt. You know, so the author here was talking about interviewing is it Evan Spiegel of Snapchat, and the chat part of Snapchat tries to duplicate how we interact, i.e. you can only do the video if both of you are in the chat window at the same time. And he compares this to what might happen now. I might text you to see if we can FaceTime because I don't know if you're available, right? But in reality, how do we talk? We have real-time communication only when both parties are present. So the goal of the Snapchat video chat was to do that. So the point then really, and this is the quote from the book, point isn't to remove the ring or make photos disappear after they've been seen. The point is to understand how we use communication products today, how we live today, and to embrace those pieces of information. Thus, this example isn't as much about altering product interfaces as it is about removing them whenever possible. So when using interfaces, we will take the path of least resistance. So we value utility and pragmatism above all else. And I think for myself, I say, I think I have any sense that I have that's good for UI is because I'm both impatient and lazy. So I want to do the least amount of work to get the maximal result. And I'm, you know, and that's sort of a lot of my programming practices are based on the fact is, oh, I did this twice and that makes me angry. Whereas people have the tolerance to put up with the 20 of it. They don't do the things that I do because I get mad after 2, for example. So here's an example. I want to watch my home team game. So let's say I have an app for my TV. Well, I could have an app and I could swipe a channel. Well, that is less than if I just had a remote and pressed a button. But that is also less than if I could call it a channel. And these days we can say, Alexa, tune to ESPN or whatever, right? That's handy when you have it enabled. And those of us who have Alexa, I think we didn't get it at first, but all of us that went and bought them, we did get it, kind of. Though it doesn't work perfectly, but for the things it does well. But what if my TV could automatically tune into the weekly game that I watch? Then I don't have to do anything. So that arguably is the best interface. And it's that gradual disappearance of the interface that I noted after reading the first 2 chapters he's talking about. All right, so the keys. I think the new approach is to forget what we've learned about interfaces, use our instincts, and constantly adapt to the changing needs that we have, right? And that's important. And this is a literally quote, admitting the tried and true solutions to old problems won't always become the solution to new problems. I think a lot of time, and I've seen that in the past with different technological advances. Hey, we used to do it this way, so we're basically doing it that way, but electronic. Sometimes that's right, sometimes that's wrong. Sometimes the thing we replace are wrong, and we have to do it the way we used to. All right, so in his intro section, there's this self-deprecation section where he says, and I realized I removed a page. My first page is chapter 1. I removed one of my slides. Why did you buy the book? His version and not my version. And he goes, hey, books are dead. Who would want to buy such a thing, especially for a tech book, which is out of date by the second you buy it, you know? And then this is a tech theory about interfaces. Oh, how boring is that? Who wants that? But then slightly less deprecating. Oh, is it because this topic is highly shared and popular? And on that note, his keynote for South by Southwest 2013 was apparently super popular. And that's kind of what he was referring to, like, oh, this is a really shared idea. And that was like the best keynote ever. So maybe this is why you want to see this thing. So we'll start with the word interface. The meaning has morphed from the original definition, which referred to how you interact with a thing, i.e. a doorknob is a real interface. I interact with the door to the doorknob. So an interface is generic and usually refers to something interacting with something physical. These days, it's a short form for graphical user interface. Using a lazy card again, you know, it's like, oh, I think typically in programming terms, you'll hear them say GUI because we're too lazy to see that, say graphical user interface, right? The book will use that meaning of interface. So when you see interface in the book, he means GUI. And then he had some references. He had various news article headlines, MIT Tech Review, Christian Science Monitor, Washington Post, where they all use interface to mean GUI. Like, oh, here's an app, and it's the best interface ever. Or I went to this web page, the best interface is all. Everyone is using interface to mean graphical user interface. All right, so the idea here, the book is a call to action, right? One of the most revered inventions, the GUI, of the last 50 years is leading us down the wrong path. Right, and these are notable UI guys, of which I really only know Alan Cooper, and I kind of know Dan Norman. I don't know who Mark Weiser is, but these are, you know, UI UX visionaries, and they all saw this before him. So he's saying, you know, it's not my idea. These guys said that our GUIs are going the wrong way. All right, and so here's the quote from his book: "Our love of the digital interface is out of control, and our obsession with it is ruining the future of innovation." And that's always last line. Innovation's always been a thing in my mind. I think that's good news. Okay, so chapter 2, here's our first example one. Screen-based thinking, let's make an app is the name of the chapter. There's an app for that. So I think you remember this saying, I think that was the big iPhone. There's an app for that kind of deal. Fairly recently, we've kind of fallen in love with apps. There's an app for everything. So in the book there, he's got like 29 examples of real life apps, many which are kind of ridiculous. And that's what a lot of, you know, the entertaining part of the thing is. Like, he's really, says he's not ranting, but he is kind of ranting, you know. And then searching for the word app is more popular than Bieber, if you can believe that. One Direction or God. And actually funny, you put God now, but I think God probably rates pretty low, you know, I guess. There. But apps are supposed to make everything better, but maybe that's not true. So here's our example for such. So we have an auto industry app example. Give the industry some credit because they've been pushing the same four-wheeled concept for 120 years. So any refresh here is good. So credit for credit due. Question is, how do you make a better car key? So here are the steps. I'm assuming he pulled this from a real life app because it's kind of ridiculous enough that it's like, you know, you couldn't make that stuff up kind of thing, right? So step 1 is we walk up with the car. There's the aforementioned door handle, the interface to a real door, you know. And actually, and I took the effort to pull the pictures out because this book is full of pictures. So I'm going to pull out my smartphone. There's his pocket where he keeps his. I'm going to wake up, you know, press whichever buttons wake it up. And of course, usually if we're smart, we have to unlock the phone because it's locked. right? And then, of course, I had the last app up, so I got to get rid of that, right? And then, depending on your phone, you may have to get it up the last group because that's what shows up there. And then I got to swipe through the icons and find the app. Where's my app? Where's my app? Okay. Oh, here it is. I'm going to click on this app, which kind of looks like an hourglass to me. And then I'm going to wait for the app to load because it takes time. Then I got to figure out, oh, look at these things. Where's the unlock? All right. And then I got to guess. Menu, tap control. Okay. And apparently, if you look at this example, I got local search, lock, unlock, remove headlights. Okay. Unlock button. And he makes some complaint. I had to figure which way to swipe it. So now I got to swipe it. Swipe the locker to unlock, and now the door can be opened. And then I get this data transfer successful. And again, I figure it has to be a real app because can't make that stuff up. So then, if we look at this all on one page, here's the steps to open the app. Lock it to my phone, pull up a smartphone, wake up my phone, unlock it, exit the last open app, exit the last open group, swipe to receive icon, searching for the app, tap on the app icon, wait for the app to load, try to find the unlock action, make a guess with the menu, tap control, tap unlock, slide the slider, physically open the door, which is my goal. So 1 is me, 13 is the goal. Was that better? Because apps make everything better. 13 steps, 2 through 12 are the digital interface, the GUI, the most revered thing of the last 50 years. Is that better than actual key? Not really. So the goal would be to eliminate the interface. Driver approaches her car, and her car door opens. So Siemens actually built such an interface for Mercedes-Benz, and I think Scott and I had one of those on our rental car, and the Buick we rented, and we didn't realize that was the case, but I'll talk about that later. When you grab the door, the actual interface, the car detects if the key is close, and it unlocks it. So this is one of the key proximity things. And if you know that, so kind of eliminate the key. So it's intuitive and elegant if you know to look for that one, which I'll talk about in a second. Okay, so we're done with that. So here's the funny thing. So Scott and I, because we get into Stanford so late because we take the freaking cross-country thing there, we often, or we used to, before we started Ubering, is we would swing by the Wendy's just outside the airport to get a burger. Of course, it'd be like almost midnight, so it's the only thing that's open then. And we're going there, and of course, we have all our luggage. And the darn trunk door won't stay closed. And we think the car is broken, and we don't leave our car. And then I don't know when we figured out, we read the manual, oh, it has a proximity sensor. Everything's unlocked when our key is close. But we thought that we couldn't lock the door and all our stuff. And it's New York City, so all our stuff will get stolen the second we don't see the car. So here's the opposite. If we knew that was the interface we'd be having, we learned that later, but we were like freaking out for probably days. Like, we can't keep our stuff, but we had said proximity sensor, which we didn't know about, so it really freaked us out. So sometimes a little warning is useful. All right, so what is the book about? Do what you normally do. Avoid the digital interface, because that means no learning, no troubleshooting. And if you sort of saw, like, if we had to troubleshoot the 13-step process, that can be a pain in the butt. And true to form, my mom forgets how to use FaceTime, which is pretty much accept the call when it happens. So the less you can have interfaces that people forget, and again, everyone I think on this call is tech savvy and works in tech, so we have a higher tolerance for this. But again, if you haven't used it in weeks, months, years, sometimes you forget. Don't use a screen if you don't need to, which means be really clever otherwise. Okay, so he says, this book is a second look at the screen-obsessed world. How did we get here? Why we are still here. So apparently we're not in a good place, but we're still stuck here. And why its trend is awful. Okay, he says it's not a rant, but kind of it is a rant. But I guess it's a rant with stuff. But he says, here are ideas for everyone. He had different examples, but basically developers, consumers, fans, entrepreneurs. Here are ideas for you to do. I'm hoping I get some inspiration to come up with something very useful and effective and best case profitable. So new way to think about tech is relevant to you and society. So here's our semi, what's the word I'm looking for? High-reaching thing. If we can change society, if we make life better. So Discuss. Okay, guys, unmute. Comments, questions, reviewing chapters 1, 2, quick. I think my presentation also quick because I was quickly.
It is.
All right. Discuss. Alexis is our UI person.
Hi. So I thought the app example with the key, I feel like he exaggerated all the steps to get there. There are definitely easier ways to find an app. But yeah, I see the point. Um, Another thing is, yeah, I like the whole philosophy of everything, like what the dude is ranting about. I think it's cool. We should look like, lift our heads out of the screen every once in a while and like think about like, is this even really necessary? Like there's a quote that says good design is invisible. So this kind of goes along with that sort of principle where it's like you don't overcomplicate things, And yeah, I like it so far. I've only read the 2 chapters.
Right. But easy read, right? I think you're all scared this morning. I said, make sure you read this before it happens. Oh my God, I got to read it because it was the last book. 2 chapters are hard. All right. Anything else? Sam, Don, Scott, Brandon, Andrew. Andrew has no interface because of his work. Alex should have some stuff.
Yeah, I'm interested to see. Like, I agree with Alexis. I definitely like this philosophy, and the first 2 chapters were interesting. I'm interested to see where it goes, because obviously, like, his whole like get rid of digital interfaces, but we're building digital interfaces here. So I'm interested to see how he starts to connect, like, his ideas for how to. I'm guessing it's just going to be how to lessen the user's interaction within a digital interface. But yeah, I'm interested to see where he goes within actual interfaces.
Right. I think like when we actually got to the app and his little screenshot, which I can kind of go back to, his little screenshot back there. This one. His little screenshot, if you can see, it's like precondition, local sort, lock, unlock, remote horn, headlights.
Mm-hmm.
And then he figured out the lock, unlock, and then if you read his little rant text, like, oh my God, which way do I swipe it? I don't know which way to swipe it, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Where if you look at the app is literally like, here's all the stuff you can do with your car, and then here's 26 buttons.
Right.
And it's like a little forethought. I think the key is it forethought or is it just this word I'm looking for? Consider a little more consideration for how I might be using this. I forget, there was something else I was sort of recently reading. Oh, so and so invented this without ever using it, because it's clear to me when you use it that the guy who created or the female or the team that built it clearly didn't use it because this is terrible. It works, but it's a pain in the butt.
Right.
There's an interesting example of that. It has to do with the Samsung washing machines, and there were certain that worked really well, like the LG and washing machines. They worked really well, but there were some features that people like that caused some problems and stuff like that. And then so they started doing some discovery, and then they found out that all the washing machines were totally designed by the male Korean engineers, and
who never washed.
It's all women, mostly women that do laundry, particularly in Korea. And so they're like, oh, like no wonder. Like there was a disconnect between the users of the laundry and the designers of the laundry.
Right.
Yeah.
I think on top of all of that too, especially with
laundry, they would appreciate it.
Well, I think Sam was trying to say something.
No, just something that I observed is like on top of the fact that like the app itself is unintuitive, compounding with that problem is the fact that we have been conditioned since like the beginning of cars that keys work this way, and you put a key in a door and it opens. And so, we've been conditioned for our entire lives that something works this way. And then now we're using an app because I guess reasons. So that's not really helping the app in this case.
Yeah. Well, that's sort of what I was talking about. Well, you've got an app, and this is how you use apps in general, forgetting that this is how you use a key.
Yeah, precisely. Like it seems like the first and foremost goal was to make an app out of it, rather than the first and foremost goal opening the car.
Right. And back in the day when Apple was great, and I've complained a lot about how they've been losing their edge. A lot of their stuff just worked. Like these days, PowerPoint is caught up to Keynote in a lot of ways, but I know back in the day, like 10 years ago, Keynote was like 100 times better than PowerPoint in the fact that I could make a good looking presentation with very little work and feel like I was awesome. Whereas PowerPoint, I can make slides, and with some struggle, I can make it look good, and the felt that I felt awesome never worked. So Apple used to have a real good sense of what was just intuitive. It's just natural. Oh, it's an iPhone. You just know what to do, kind of thing. That used to be true. I think once you hit past a certain complexity, you lose it. It's, I mean, the UI in the Mac is generally better than I think the PC still. But like I said, Windows has come a long way. Windows 10 is way more pleasant and comfortable than it ever has been. And of course, people learn Android. Android was terrible at first, and it caught up. And I think in some ways, depending on what you want to do, surpasses. So things change over time. All right, so then I'm going to come back to what do I have after this? Any other discussion before I
think we ought to bring Nick's designs back from 8-9 years ago.
And lampoon them?
and show Alexis
Oh.
and Alex just how much we rejoice that they are not.
All right. Yes. All right. We should leave that off air.
Yeah.
Okay. I do have. I think I'm gonna, because I have obviously plenty of time. I'm gonna play some of the Southwest keynote. But before we do that one, who should do the next chapter? I took a quick scan. I think you could do 2 chapters worth. Actually, on the side note, so the new format of presentation for everything that was suggested by Brett. How did mine go? Was that okay? Was that better than?
Yeah, I thought it was great.
Yeah, that's good. Is it an org file? Could you send us?
It's an org file. I can send you the plain text minus the images because you need the actual images. But yes, I can.
Cool.
Can we make a repo for this somewhere for us to maybe add our next presentations for whoever goes next?
Yeah, let's discuss that offline a little bit. Yes.
Okay.
All right. So, who wants to volunteer to be the next reader? Got 2 weeks, and I'm okay with you making a card in Pivotal and putting some time. But doing it in advance was good. I did mine Friday. So, volunteers or who wants to get voluntold?
I'll volunteer.
All right, Alex will do it. My quick scan, I think, is 3 and 4 are relatively short. Do you agree?
Yeah, I have the book here.
Right. It's lighthearted and fun.
Yeah.
Far.
Yes, yeah, they're both pretty short.
Right. So you
Of course,
got
a lot longer, but still.
you got a lot of pictures to paste,
Mm-hmm.
and then to talk to them in a way that makes sense. So I think 2 chapters is good. Okay. Good. I got the first assigned. I'm gonna go and play some. In theory, I could play the whole thing. I don't know if I will. Actually, I don't know how good does that look? Looks okay. I would kind of like to jump to the meat. There you go.
So there's a lot to celebrate in technology today. Even in our own lifetimes, we've gone from carrying 100-pound television sets to now paper-thin, lightweight boards. We've seen computer processors be able to compute things hundreds of thousands of times faster in our own lifetimes. But there's a terrible trend emerging in technology, and I think it's taking us away from it. I work in tech, So I'm partially to blame for this trend, and a lot of you work in tech, so might be to blame also. But I think if you listen closely today, you can hear how we can move past this awful trend to build a better tomorrow. I'm a UX designer. To me, that means I do everything I can to understand your common, everyday problems. Then use technology to solve them. Right now, I do that at Samsung Design America, which is an innovations lab, to create a new product to solve your problem. And before, I did it at Cooper, which is a design consultancy in San Francisco. We worked with startups and Fortune 50 to solve everyday problems for their customers. It's my goal as a designer to solve people's problems. But I think as an industry, we're losing sight of that goal. I think as an industry, we're riding a wave that takes us away from solving problems. What's so fascinating about this awful trend is that it started with something so good. About 40 years ago, we had the ability to take hundreds of components, put them into a single chip. That meant we could build smaller computers, desktop computers, and it became part of our workflow. But unfortunately, we gave people an awful user experience. We forced them into command line user interfaces. And that meant they needed to memorize bizarre commands, language written by programmers for programmers. They needed to spew out commands like dir to the all-powerful program. But then we got something great. Xerox Labs ideas converted to an icon, a window, a menu, and a pointer. We got our first mainstream graphical user. It was so good. We could point and click. We could drag and drop. What we saw is what we got. And about 10 years later, when we could start touching our interfaces, instead of pointing and clicking, it was even better. But today, our love for the digital interface has gotten completely out of hand. It's become our answer to everything. How do you build a better car? Slap an interface on it. A screen in the middle of your speedometer, so you can check things that are more important than how fast you're going, like your Twitter and your Facebook. An amazing promotional video. How do you build a better hotel experience? Slap an interface in your hotel lobby, a 55-inch touchscreen, so you can dig through menus of USA Today headlines that are supposed to make your hotel stay better. If you were at CES this year, you may have seen how we made ovens better. Slap the 7-inch Android-powered touchscreen on it, so you can watch YouTube while you bake cookies. And if you're at CES, hopefully you didn't miss the latest and greatest in toilets. This is the iPotty, a children's toilet with a screen on it. You know, somewhere along the ways, we got confused. We started thinking user experience was the same thing as user interface. And we started trying to solve problems with screens. And what that's led us to become surrounded by screens. Your desk isn't worthwhile if it doesn't have at least 2 monitors. Your smartphone isn't decent if it's not at least 4 inches. I mean, we have over 1.2 million mobile apps. It's come to the point where our greatest minds aren't advancing science or taking us into space. They're working on ads at Facebook. You know, and if you're afraid that in depth you're going to miss all of these screens, you can always get the Catatop combo, which is an interface on your tube. You know, it wasn't that long ago that our lives were filled with paper, and we dreamed of a paperless world. Now, instead, our lives are filled with screens, and I think we should dream of a screenless world. I actually think the best interface, no interface. And I'd like to show you how we can get there. I've created 3 principles. They're not about things or kind of technology. They're about us. It's us. The first principle is to embrace typical processes that are street. You know, a couple of major car companies have released smartphone apps. They're supposed to be an improvement on the car key. And they let you do things and they brag about things like unlocking a car door. Well, let's just see how that works. So I use one of these apps to unlock my car door. First thing I do is walk up to my car. Then I'm looking to unlock my car doors, but pull up. Looking to unlock my car doors, but I wake up my phone. Looking to unlock my car doors, slide down. Looking to unlock my car doors. Sorry, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Try not to hack this one. Still looking to unlock my car doors, and now I have to swipe through the sea of icons, trying to find the app if I can remember what color it might be. There it is. Looking to unlock my car doors, now I have to launch the app. Looking to unlock my car doors, the app loads, and I get this incredible map of North America. And I'm looking to unlock my car doors, and it's sort of hard to see on these projectors, but there's a middle icon there that says control, and maybe that'll help me unlock my car doors. There's no way to really know. And tap on it. All right, now I've got a sort of a list item, and I'm looking up my car doors, and right there, one of the options says locking, unlocking. Sounds like we'll probably do the trick. So I tap the button. Probably going to unlock my car doors. It actually gives me the slider. One side is locked, the other side is unlocked. I'm looking up my car doors, so I'm probably going to go to the right to unlock my car doors. Go ahead and do it. Now yes, data transferred is what it says there, but I'm guessing that means my car doors are unlocked. And yeah, now I can finally do it. This is the app-based, screen-based thinking that we all use. And we need to get away from it. So if you look at these steps, is this an improvement on the car key? I don't think so, right? And if we sort of break it down, let's sort of look at what happened there. There was me, right? And I walking up to my car. There was the digital interface, the steps that I had to do. And then there's my goal, the thing that I really wanted to do, the thing that I was looking forward to do. Let's say we embrace this first principle. Let's say we embrace the processes and avoid screens. You're looking at something like this. Sounds kind of crazy. But actually, before we got caught up in all this screen-based thinking, in the late 90s, Mercedes-Benz created technology where you can pull your car door handle, they'll send out a low-frequency radio signal, your car keys in your pocket, or in your purse. Car doors will unlock. So for the common everyday user, all they do is pull the door handle and the car door unlocks. Some people say, well, okay, this sounds great, Golden, but the app is really useful as an alternative, as a backup, when you lock your keys inside your car. But the great thing about Mercedes keyless go systems is it knows where your keys are. So you actually can't lock your keys in the car, because it knows the keys are in the car. You know, the entire automotive industry is filled with screw-based things. We have a lot of apps. This is one that's pretty popular. It's in CES. I won an award there. It's AOL. AOL's Auto blog. It was an Engadget called Viper Smart Start. And looking at it, you know, it looks like a better app than the one that we just showed. It's got 4 common actions there. It's not beautiful by any means. But they're big buttons. You can kind of get to the thing that you need. So we think this is decent because we're used to looking at wireframes. We think this is good because we're used to screen-based things. Let's actually think about a typical process and look at one of these actions, opening your car. Right? And instead of screens, let's start with insights. This is what someone looks like when they're walking through their trunk. This someone actually happens to be Mitt Romney, but let's just say he reaches his ideal and becomes the everyday person. So here's Mitt carrying stuff to his trunk, and his hands are full, right? He's in a rush, and this is probably pretty heavy. He doesn't really want to probably put this down, take out his smartphone, hit the button, go through all those steps, and throw out his back trying to pick this up. The design team at Ford realized that when you walk to your trunk, even though your hands are full, your feet might be free. So they put a sensor under the bumper, and it looks for a shin and then a foot kick, and the trunk opens. You know, good experience design isn't good screens. Good experiences. Second principle is to leverage computers instead of creating. You know, computers are incredibly powerful. They can calculate incredibly complex. But we make them like they're free. And so they have a bizarre relationship with us. And they say things to us like this. This is a real error message from Microsoft. And it happened because of this bizarre relationship that we have with computers. It happened because we think we serve computers. This is how we make computers. But I say let's reverse this relationship. Let's have computers serve us. A couple of months ago, an emergency room doctor contacted me about a headlamp that does just this. You see, this doctor volunteers to do search and rescue. Sometimes that search and rescue involves cave search and rescue. And cave search and rescue is by no means easy. Sometimes requires crawling into small crevices, drilling out panicked survivors. And so this emergency room physician shared with me this headlamp. And it's made by a company called Pretzel. Pretzel's been making headlamps for over 40 years. They actually have their roots in cave. After 40 years of making headlamps, they didn't decide to slap an interface on it. So you can check your Twitter while you can save them. Instead, they tried to solve a problem. You see, when you're out doing search and rescue, your headlamp isn't the most obnoxious thing, but it's annoying. It takes you away from the thing you're doing because you need a bright, high beam look at caves. But that same high beam whitewashes your maps. Your maps define people. So what Pretzel did is they just put a light sensor and a microchip on their headlamps. And when you look close, the light dims. And when you look far away, light brightens. What this does is do more than remove an annoyance. It makes the doctor better. You see, when we serve computers, we create databases. But when computers serve us, they can help us save them. Your computers can do so much more than that. They can help us do things that we don't want to do, or things that we don't even know we should. See, in the 2008 presidential campaign, Barack Obama said that we could reduce our dependency on foreign oil by properly inflating our credit card. Well, the idea was mocked by the Republican Party, who sent out higher pressure gauges with Obama's energy plan. But it turned out on this particular issue, Barack Obama, we better inflate our car tires, we can actually save gas, reduce our dependency on foreign oil. Not only can we save money and pollute less for properly our tires, we're also saving. But despite this knowledge, a lot of people don't want to properly our tires. And I mean, some people have known about this for a while, and now everybody in this room knows it. But it's not a really fun experience properly inflate your car tires. You pull up to a gas station and you start pumping quarters into the buy air to do, and then you're kind of leaned over and you're kind of showing the world something you don't really want to be showing them. Nobody wants to do this, right? So what does a major tire manufacturer do? Well, Goodyear has an app, and it lets you do amazing things like print and email brochures. Unfortunately, Goodyear started to think beyond. And in their innovations lab in Ohio, created this, a self-inflating tire. While you're driving, a part of the tire looks to see if the tire is properly inflated. And if it's not, the tire reinflates to the right amount of air pressure, saving you money on your gas and making you safer to drive. Right now, they're testing this on commercial trucks. See, when we serve computers, we have to memorize what's our task. But when computers serve us, well, we can produce solutions, reduce our dependency, and all sorts of things. You know, third principle is to create a system that is downstream. Everyone in this room,
Plagiarizing your name.
you all have your own set of preferences, your own favorite color, favorite thing to do, your own way of getting something.
Basically,
But that's not how we
what
build software.
sandbox to apply to.
We don't build
So
software
mentioned
for each and every
the identification sandbox.
It takes a really smart
Yeah.
team
Right. Let him
to
pause
figure out
here.
how to solve most things.
So I don't know that I should broadcast the entire thing. So I'll put the link on the chat. You guys can see this. Oh, boom for those. There's a link. Watch.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Should be interesting. We'll pick up. Enjoy. We'll see Alex in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Oh, he's actually coming?
All right.
Wow. All right. Thank you, Forrest, for that proxy Alex presentation.
There you go.
Let's see the real Alex.
All right. Enjoy.
You better be nice.